Dog won't stop barking at school bus. Officer discovers heartbreaking secret inside. Max's sudden change in behavior sent a chill down Sarah Collins' spine. In 6 years of partnership, she'd learned to read every twitch of his ears, every subtle shift in his posture. The Belgian Malinois had gone from alert to razor-focused in a heartbeat, his eyes locked on the yellow school bus pulling into Pine Valley Elementary. "Max?" Sarah watched her partner's muscles tense beneath his tactical vest. The morning sun caught the badge on his collar, a match to the one pinned to her own chest. Around them, parents' cars moved through the drop-off lane in their usual morning dance, but Max's attention remained fixed on the bus. The first warning bark cut through the crisp October air like a gunshot. Parents turned their heads. A group of teachers paused on the steps. Max never barked on duty. It was one of the things that made him exceptional in their K9 unit. Yet now he was advancing toward the bus, each step deliberate, each bark more urgent than the last. Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her radio, but she hesitated. Last month's drug bust had earned them both commendations, but her supervisor's words still rang in her ears. "No more complications, Collins. The brass is watching." Still, Max had never been wrong. Not once. That drug bust had started the same way, Max acting strange, Sarah trusting his instincts, and together they'd uncovered one of the largest trafficking operations in Georgia's history. The bus doors hissed open. Children started filing out, their backpacks bouncing, their voices filling the morning air with excited chatter. Some waved at Max. He was a familiar sight at Pine Valley, having participated in several safety demonstrations. But today, he ignored their friendly calls. Sarah studied the driver through the large side mirror. Something was off. His hands gripped the wheel too tightly, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool morning. "Atlanta PD," Sarah projected her voice, years of training kicking in. "Sir, please shut off the engine." The driver's eyes met hers in the mirror. Time seemed to freeze. Then his hand moved, not toward the key, but under his seat. "Max, guard!" The command was unnecessary. Her partner was already moving, positioning himself between the driver and the last few children stepping off the bus. Sarah drew her weapon. "Hands where I can see them! Now!" Parents were shouting now. Teachers herded children inside. Sarah caught fragments of their voices. "Oh my God," and "call 911," but her focus remained on the driver. He was young, early 30s maybe, his uniform too new, too crisp. His name tag read Miller, but something about it looked wrong. "Exit the vehicle slowly," hands raised. He complied, but his eyes kept darting to the rear of the bus. Max's barking had changed pitch. He was trying to tell her something. Sarah knew that tone. It was the same one he'd used when they'd found the hidden compartment in that warehouse last month. "On your knees," Sarah ordered, keeping her weapon trained on the driver as she keyed her radio. "Dispatch, this is K9 Officer Collins at Pine Valley Elementary. I need immediate backup and—" Max's barking reached a fever pitch. He'd moved to the back of the bus, pawing at the floor. Sarah felt her blood run cold. That particular behavior, she'd seen it during their explosives training. "Clear the area! Everyone back!" she shouted, her voice carrying across the now chaotic parking lot. The driver started to shake, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "They have my daughter. They said nobody would get hurt. They promised it was just about the money." Sarah's mind raced. Protocol said to wait for backup, but Max's behavior was becoming increasingly urgent. "Where?" she demanded. "Where exactly?" "Hidden compartment. Under the back seats. But please, my little girl. They said they'd kill her if anything went wrong." Sarah handcuffed him to a nearby fence post. "Don't move," as if he had a choice. She approached the bus carefully, Max continuing his frantic signal. The compartment was well hidden, but she found the release mechanism. What she saw inside knocked the breath from her lungs. Automatic weapons, enough explosives to level the school, detailed blueprints of every building on campus, and something else, a phone, its screen displaying a countdown timer. 48, 47, 59, 59, 47, 59, 58. Sarah's hands moved instinctively to Max's tactical vest, finding the hidden pocket where she kept her phone. Her fingers flew across the screen, sending a pre-arranged signal to her supervisor. 4 words that would mobilize every available unit in Atlanta. Omega Protocol. Children involved. The morning sun continued to paint the sky in gentle autumn colors, but Sarah's world had shifted into sharp focus. She looked at Max, his posture still rigid with alertness, and saw in his eyes the same determination she felt coursing through her veins. Whatever they'd stumbled into, there were children at risk. And as she heard the first sirens approaching in the distance, Sarah knew 2 things with absolute certainty. 1, this was bigger than a single bus with hidden weapons. 2, she and Max had just stepped into the most dangerous case of their careers. The driver, Miller, if that was even his real name, had stopped crying. He stared at Sarah with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Will you help her? My daughter? She's only 8. Sarah met his gaze, her voice firm but not unkind. "We'll find her. But first you're going to tell me everything, every detail, no matter how small." Max moved closer to her side, his body practically vibrating with tension. Sarah placed her hand on his head, drawing strength from the familiar contact. They had 48 hours to prevent what was clearly a carefully orchestrated attack. The clock was ticking, and somewhere in Atlanta, more buses were likely being loaded with similar cargo. Her phone buzzed. A response from her supervisor. "All units mobilizing. Stay on scene." The game had begun, and the stakes had never been higher. The interrogation room at Atlanta PD felt colder than usual. Sarah watched Thomas Miller through the one-way glass, his orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the bus driver's uniform he'd worn hours earlier. Max sat beside her, ears forward, studying the suspect with the same intensity he'd shown at the school. "He's not our guy," Detective Rodriguez said, sliding a file across the desk. Background check came back clean. Too clean. His identity was created 3 months ago. Driver's license, social security, work history, all fabricated but high-quality work. Sarah flipped through the papers, her jaw tightening. What about his daughter? That's the thing. Rodriguez tapped a photo of a young girl with bright eyes and a missing front tooth. Katie Miller exists, 8 years old, 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary. Except she didn't show up for school today, and her mother reported her missing last night. The weird part, the mother's house was broken into, but nothing was taken. Just a message left on the mirror. "We'll take good care of her." Max's low growl drew Sarah's attention to Miller's hands. They were tracing patterns on the metal table, over and over. Not random movements, she realized. Letters. "Get me in there," Sarah said, already moving toward the door. Max followed, his nails clicking against the tile floor. Miller's head snapped up as they entered. Fear flashed across his face, then recognition when he saw Max. "The famous dog," he whispered, "the one they talk about." Sarah sat across from him, letting Max circle the room. "Who talks about him, Thomas? The same people who have Katie?" Miller's hands shook. "I can't. They're watching. They're always watching." His fingers resumed their pattern on the table, more urgently now. Max barked once, sharp and clear. Sarah had caught it too. The letters Miller was tracing. S-E-C-U-R-E. "Detective," Sarah called out, "bring me everything we have on Secure Solutions." Miller's eyes widened slightly. Confirmation. Sarah pressed on. "The security company that lost their school district contract last year. That's who you work for, isn't it?" "Worked for," Miller corrected, his voice barely audible. "Until they fired half the staff. Said the schools didn't need private security anymore. That's when they contacted me. Said they knew about Katie's medical bills, her heart condition. They offered to pay for her surgery." Sarah felt her own heart tighten. Max moved closer to Miller, surprising both of them by resting his head on the man's knee. She'd seen her partner do this before, offering comfort to victims, sensing their genuine distress. "The weapons in the bus." Sarah kept her voice steady. "Where were they headed?" "Different drops. They gave us routes, timers. Said it was just money and documents. Miller's composure cracked. But then I saw the explosives. I tried to back out, but they showed me pictures of Katie at her friend's house, said they could reach her anywhere. A knock at the door interrupted them. Rodriguez entered with a tablet. "You need to see this," he said, pulling up surveillance footage. "Camera caught this at Secure's old warehouse 20 minutes ago." The grainy video showed men loading crates into what looked like school buses. Sarah counted 4 vehicles before the feed cut out. The men moved with military precision. "There's more." Rodriguez swiped to a map. Traffic cams picked up similar buses heading to different schools across the district, all following normal routes. The timer from the phone flashed in Sarah's memory. 47 hours left. "They're using the whole fleet," Miller said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Multiple targets. The festival this weekend. All the schools participate. They said it was the perfect—" He choked on the words. Sarah's phone vibrated. A text with an image. A little girl, sleeping peacefully in what looked like a basement. Katie's dark hair spread across a dirty pillow. The message below, "Keep him quiet or she dies." Max's posture changed instantly, picking up on Sarah's tension. She slid the phone to Rodriguez, who immediately left the room, presumably to trace the number. "Thomas." Sarah leaned forward. "I'm going to find Katie, but I need to know everything. The warehouse location, contact names, any details about their plan." "You don't understand." He shook his head violently. "These people, they're not just criminals. They have connections. High up, in the school board, the police." A sudden explosion rocked the building. Emergency lights flashed as alarms blared. Max was already at the door, body tense, his training taking over, as he positioned himself between Sarah and potential danger. "Secure the prisoner!" Sarah heard someone shout in the hallway, then gunshots. The lights went out. In the darkness, Sarah felt Max press against her leg. His training kicked in. He would lead them to safety. But as she reached for Miller, her hand met empty air. The backup lights flickered on, illuminating an empty chair. On the table, written in what looked like blood, "No loose ends." Sarah's radio crackled. "Officer down at the south entrance. Suspect in custody, but—" Static interrupted the transmission. Max's growl deepened as he caught a scent. Sarah drew her weapon, following her partner toward the door. Miller's disappearance was too clean, too professional. Someone had orchestrated this, turning the police station itself into a trap. The countdown timer ticked in her mind. 46 hours until whatever they had planned. Somewhere in the city, a little girl waited for rescue, and now their only solid lead had vanished. "Find him, Max," Sarah whispered. Her partner responded with a soft woof. He already had the scent. As they moved through the darkened hallway, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was exactly what someone wanted. They were being played, drawn into a game where the rules kept changing. But if there was one thing Sarah knew, it was that no one could outmaneuver a determined K-9 officer and her partner, especially not when children's lives were at stake. The hunt was on. Blood trailed down the precinct's back stairwell like breadcrumbs. Max led the way, his nose working overtime, while Sarah followed with her weapon drawn. Each drop of blood meant Miller was still alive, at least for now. The trail ended at a maintenance door, its lock cleanly cut. Beyond it, the November air bit at Sarah's face as she emerged onto a seldom-used service alley. Max circled the area, then stopped at a drain grate, pouring at something caught in the metal. Sarah knelt beside her partner. A torn piece of orange fabric from Miller's jumpsuit, and beneath it a crumpled business card. The logo was faded, but she recognized it instantly. Secure Solutions. The same company name Miller had traced on the interrogation room table. Her radio crackled. "Collins, report to the command center immediately." Captain Chen's voice left no room for argument. Sarah pocketed the card. "Good boy, Max," she whispered, scratching behind his ears. Her partner had given them their first real lead. The command center was chaos. Officers rushed between desks, phones rang continuously, and multiple screens displayed maps of Atlanta's school district. Captain Chen stood at the center of it all, her expression grave as she studied a document. "Close the door," Chen ordered without looking up. Once Sarah complied, the captain finally met her eyes. "What do you know about your brother's work at Pine Valley Elementary?" Sarah felt her stomach drop. "James. He's a history teacher. Been there 5 years." Max pressed against her leg, sensing her tension. Chen slid the document across her desk. It was a staff photo from Pine Valley, taken last spring. James stood in the back row, and next to him, Sarah's blood ran cold, was Marcus Reynolds, former CEO of Secure Solutions. "Your brother's been making some interesting deposits," Chen continued. $20,000 last month, $30,000 the month before. "That's impossible." But even as Sarah spoke, memories surfaced. James's new car, the expensive private school for her niece, the vacation home he'd supposedly won in a contest. Max whined softly, drawing Sarah's attention to another detail in the photo. A familiar face in the front row, Katie Miller's mother, listed as the school nurse. "There's more." Chen pulled up security footage on her monitor. This was taken 3 days ago. The grainy video showed James entering Secure's abandoned warehouse, shaking hands with a man whose face was hidden in shadow. As they talked, workers moved crates in the background, the same crates Sarah had found in Miller's bus. "I need you to bring him in," Chen said. "Quietly. If he's involved—" "He's not," Sarah interrupted, but uncertainty gnawed at her gut. "Let me talk to him first, please." Chen studied her for a long moment. "You have 1 hour. But, Sarah, if he runs—" The unspoken message was clear. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. Understood. The drive to James's house felt surreal. Max sat in the back seat, unusually quiet, as if sensing the weight of what was coming. Sarah's mind raced through years of memories. James helping her study for the police academy, cheering at her graduation, hosting Sunday dinners where Max played with Emily in the backyard. Had it all been a lie? James's house was dark when they arrived, but his car sat in the driveway. Sarah checked her watch. Emily would be at soccer practice. At least she wouldn't have to witness whatever was about to happen. Max's ears suddenly pricked forward. A moment later, Sarah heard it too. Muffled voices from the garage. She drew her weapon, signaling Max to stay close. The side door was unlocked. Sarah eased it open, following the voices. Light spilled from beneath the interior garage door, along with the sound of an argument. "Wasn't part of the deal," James's voice, angry and afraid. "You said no one would get hurt. Plans change." The second voice was cold, professional. "Your sister's getting too close. Miller was weak, but you understand what's at stake." Sarah's hand tightened on her weapon. Max's muscles coiled, ready to spring. "I won't help you hurt children," James said. "I'm going to the police." "Like you went to them about the money laundering, the fake records? Your hands aren't clean, James, but your daughters are, for now." Sarah heard the distinctive click of a safety being released. Without thinking, she kicked the door open. "Police! Drop your weapon!" The scene froze. James stood with his back to a workbench, face pale. Across from him, a man in an expensive suit held a gun, the same man from the warehouse video. Behind them, Sarah glimpsed papers scattered across the bench, blueprints, schedules, what looked like detonator designs. The man smiled. "Officer Collins, right on schedule." Max's growl filled the garage. Sarah kept her weapon steady. "Drop it, now." "Interesting choice," the man said. "Save your brother or save those children. The timers are already counting down. James here was kind enough to help us plan everything. Class schedules, security patrols, all the little details that make a plan work." "Sarah," James's voice cracked, "they have Emily, just like Katie Miller. I had to—" The garage exploded in movement. The man fired, James dove, and Max launched himself through the air. Sarah's own shot echoed in the confined space. When the chaos cleared, Max had the gunman pinned. Blood spread across the man's shoulder where Sarah's bullet had found its mark. James lay curled against the workbench, clutching his arm. "Sarah," he gasped, "the warehouse on Bolton Road. That's where they're keeping the girls. But the bombs, they're not just in the buses. They're already in the schools. Dozens of them." Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Captain Chen. "All units mobilizing. Explosive devices found at Pine Valley Elementary. The timer in Sarah's mind ticked relentlessly. 45 hours until the festival. Somewhere in a warehouse, 2 little girls waited for rescue, and scattered across Atlanta, hidden bombs sat ready to tear innocent lives apart. Sarah met Max's eyes, seeing her own determination reflected there. They had to split up, save the girls or save the schools. Time to make an impossible choice. Sarah's SUV tore through Atlanta's streets, lights flashing. In the passenger seat, James pressed a bandage to his arm where the bullet had grazed him. Max sat alert in the back, his eyes fixed on Sarah's brother, trusted family member now turned possible threat. "The warehouse," James said, his voice hoarse. "It's a maze inside. They keep the girls in the sub-basement. Emily, Katie, maybe others." He winced as they hit a pothole. "But Sarah, the bombs!" "SWAT's already at Pine Valley." Sarah cut him off. "Bomb squads en route to other schools. Right now, those girls are our priority." She didn't add what they both knew. If James was lying, they were driving into a trap. Her radio crackled. "Collins, status report." Captain Chen's voice was tense. "Target location 5 minutes out. Proceeding with civilian informant and K9 unit." "Negative. Wait for backup. That's an order." Sarah clicked the radio off. Time was the one thing they didn't have. Her phone showed a new message. Another photo of Emily and Katie, now awake and terrified, a digital clock visible in the background. The timestamp matched. "They're still alive," James whispered. "Sarah, I never meant... When they first approached me, it was just about information. Class schedules, security protocols. They said it was for a private security contract bid. When did you realize the truth?" 2 weeks ago. Found blueprints in Reynolds' office. Not just security plans, bomb layouts. But by then they had Emily. Said they'd kill her if I didn't help coordinate the bus routes. Max's growl interrupted them. They'd reached Bolton Road, a stretch of abandoned warehouses along the railroad tracks. Sarah killed the lights, letting the SUV coast to a stop in the shadows. "Which building?" James pointed to a massive structure with boarded windows. "There's a loading dock on the east side. Guards change shifts at midnight, 10 minutes from now." Sarah checked her weapon, then reached back to activate Max's tactical vest camera. If anything happened to them, at least the footage would reach the precinct. "You stay here. If we're not back in 20 minutes... "No." James grabbed her arm. "I'm coming. Emily's in there because of me." Besides, his attempt at a smile failed. "You'll need someone who knows the layout." Sarah studied her brother's face. The same face that had cheered at her academy graduation, that hosted Sunday family dinners, that always stood for what was right. Until now. "Max, guard," she commanded. The Belgian Malinois positioned himself between them and the warehouse, waiting for signals. They moved silently through the darkness. James had been right about the guard change. They slipped inside during the 30-second gap between patrols. The warehouse interior was a catacomb of shipping containers and old machinery. "Down there," James indicated a freight elevator. "Sub-basement's not on the building plans. They retrofitted it last year." The elevator was a risk. Too noisy. Too obvious. Sarah found the maintenance stairs instead, Max leading the way. His training in confined space searches had earned him top marks at K9 certification. 3 levels down, the air grew thick with moisture. Max froze, ears forward. Sarah heard it too. Children's voices, faint but unmistakable. Then another sound, footsteps above them, heavy boots on metal stairs. "They're early," James hissed. "Guard change isn't for..." He stopped, realization dawning. "Sarah, it's a trap. They knew I'd..." Gunfire erupted from above. Sarah shoved James behind a concrete pillar as bullets sparked off the metal railing. Max was already moving, circling to flank their attackers. Sarah returned fire, the muzzle flash revealing glimpses of tactical gear, professional operators, not just security guards, military training. Through her earpiece, she heard the distinctive sound of Max engaging a target, followed by a scream cut short. "Sarah!" Emily's voice echoed from somewhere in the darkness. "Aunt Sarah, help!" Every instinct screamed to run toward her niece's voice, but Sarah held position. Rule 1 of hostage situations: never trust what you hear. A phone clattered down the stairs, landing at her feet. On its screen, live video played, Emily and Katie in a concrete room, water rising around their ankles. A message scrolled across the bottom: choose, girls or schools. More footsteps above and below now. They were surrounded. James grabbed the phone, his face ashen. There's a drainage system. They're flooding the sub-basement. Max's bark echoed through the stairwell, his signal for multiple threats approaching. They had seconds to decide. Sarah's radio crackled back to life. Captain Chen: bombs confirmed at 3 schools. Timers accelerated. 30 minutes to detonation. The choice crystallized with brutal clarity. Save 2 lives, or save hundreds. Search for the girls, or help evacuate the schools. But there was a third option, one that required trusting someone who'd already betrayed her. James! Sarah held out her backup weapon. You know the layout. You know where they're keeping them. Her brother stared at the gun, understanding dawning. You can't take on these guys alone. I'm not alone. Sarah nodded toward Max, who stood ready at her side. Get the girls out, whatever it takes. James took the weapon, his hands steady now. Sarah, if something, save our girls. She managed a tight smile. And James, don't make me regret this. Max's growl deepened. Incoming hostiles. Sarah checked her ammunition. 1 magazine left. No backup coming. And somewhere above, innocent children sat in classrooms, unaware of the devices hidden beneath their feet. Ready, partner? She whispered to Max. His soft woof was all the answer she needed. Time to show these mercenaries why Atlanta PD's K-9 unit had the highest success rate in the country. Time to remind them what happened when you threatened children in her city. The hunt was about to become a war. Max struck first, a black shadow in the darkness taking down the lead attacker. Sarah followed with 2 precise shots, dropping more of Reynolds' men as they descended the stairwell. The confined space amplified each gunshot, echoing off metal and concrete. Status on bomb disposal, she shouted into her radio, diving behind a steel container as return fire sparked off the walls. Captain Chen's response crackled through static. First device located at Pine Valley. 25 minutes remaining. Bomb squad says it's military grade. These aren't amateurs, Collins. 3 hostiles on the upper landing. 2 below, trying to flank her position. And somewhere in this maze, Marcus Reynolds orchestrated his endgame. The man who'd corrupted her brother, threatened children, all for profit. Her phone buzzed with a video from James. Emily and Katie huddled on metal shelving as water rose in their concrete prison. The girls clutched each other, faces pale with fear. Emily, who played fetch with Max every Sunday. Katie Miller, whose father had tried to warn them. Found them, James whispered. South corner, but the doors are rigged. Electronic locks, backup power supply. A flashbang grenade arced through the air. Sarah rolled, but wasn't fast enough. The explosion transformed the world into white light and screaming pressure. Through the chaos, she heard Max engaging another target. Officer Collins. Reynolds' voice echoed through hidden speakers. Impressive work, but futile. In 20 minutes, 3 schools will be reduced to rubble. Security contracts will be reviewed, and my company will rise from the ashes. Sarah blinked away after images. Pretty elaborate plan just to get your contracts back. Think bigger, Reynolds laughed. Insurance payouts, construction bids, security overhaul for every school in Georgia. A billion-dollar industry built on one terrible day. The private sector stepping in to protect our children from tragedy. Movement above. Sarah fired twice, heard a grunt of pain. Max's bark echoed their danger code. Multiple explosives detected. Found the door controls, James radioed. But there's a failsafe. Manual override in the security office. Northwest corner. Sarah, the water's rising faster. 15 minutes, Chen cut in. Collins, we need a miracle. The devices are networked. If one goes, they all go. Sarah visualized the warehouse layout. Northwest corner meant going up, exposing herself. The sub-basement controls were her only chance to save the girls. Unless, Her mind raced through years of training. The warehouse's age, its construction, the way sound carried through the ventilation system. A plan formed. "Max, come!" Her partner materialized beside her. She emptied her backup magazine, letting him catch the scent. "Find James." The Belgian Malinois disappeared into the darkness. Sarah moved deeper into the warehouse. Each step had to be perfect. Reynolds' men were professionals, ex-military by their movements. She reached the central support column, ancient brick, load-bearing, the kind of structural element that, if compromised, would trigger every safety system in the building. "Final warning, Collins," Reynolds taunted. "Walk away. The girls might live." Sarah pulled her modified flashbang, magnesium core, thermite coating. Not standard issue, but neither was this situation. "Here's the thing about K9 officers," she called out. "We learn to think like our partners, notice patterns, follow instincts, understand how things are connected." The grenade arced through the air. Reynolds' men fired reflexively, exactly as planned. The thermite explosion bloomed like a miniature sun, triggering every sprinkler head simultaneously. Water cascaded through all levels of the warehouse, carrying electricity through paths its designers never intended. "Water's rising faster," James radioed. "But the electrical is shorting out," Sarah finished, "including the bomb triggers. Water and complex electronics don't mix." Chaos erupted as Reynolds' men scrambled to save equipment. Through the confusion, Sarah moved with purpose toward the security office. Max's bark from below confirmed the girls were safe. Reynolds stood at the bank of monitors, frantically typing commands. Water dripped from the ceiling, shorting out screens one by one. "It's over," Sarah said. He turned, raising his gun. "You have no idea what you've done. The money invested, the promises made. Don't care. But your investors will care that you failed." "I can still detonate manually, with water in the circuits?" Sarah smiled. "That's not how bombs work, but you wouldn't know that. You just hired the experts." Reynolds' finger tightened. "Then I'll at least—" Max struck from behind, taking Reynolds down with practiced efficiency. The gun skittered across the wet floor as Sarah's radio erupted. "Bombs neutralized at Pine Valley. All schools reporting safe. Girls found. Medical team incoming." She read Reynolds his rights as sirens approached. Dawn painted the sky in shades of hope. Max maintained his hold, tail wagging slightly. More evidence waited to be found, more conspirators to be identified. "This was just one plan," Reynolds spat. "There will be others." Sarah checked her watch. 6 a.m. Across Atlanta, school buses were beginning their routes, carrying children safely to class. Emily and Katie would have stories to tell, but they would tell them, alive and whole. "There might be," she agreed, scratching Max's ears. Her partner's fur was soaked, but his eyes were bright with satisfaction. "But that's the thing about K9 officers and their partners. We're very good at finding what's hidden." The hunt was over. The war was won. And in the growing light of morning, a new day began. 3 weeks after the warehouse raid, Sarah stood at the back of Pine Valley Elementary's auditorium, watching Emily and her classmates perform in the rescheduled fall festival. Max sat at attention beside her, his tactical vest replaced by a therapy dog harness, a new role they'd taken on to help the children process recent events. His gentle presence had already worked wonders with students still struggling with nightmares. The auditorium buzzed with an energy different from typical school events. Parents held their children closer, teachers scanned the room more frequently. But there was healing too, in the proud smiles, the excited whispers, the gradual return to normalcy. "They're resilient," James said quietly, joining them. His arm was still in a sling, but the haunted look in his eyes had begun to fade. House arrest suited him better than prison, a deal earned by his full cooperation with the investigation. The GPS monitor on his ankle was a constant reminder of consequences, but at least Emily still had her father. Sarah nodded, watching Emily take her bow after a flute solo, the same piece she'd been practicing the night everything started. "They are. Katie's doing better too." Her father's plea deal included witness protection. They'll have a fresh start somewhere safe. New names, new school, new chance at life. Max's ears perked up at the mention of Katie. He'd formed a special bond with both girls during their recovery, spending hours letting them pet him, performing tricks to make them laugh, being the steady presence they needed while working with trauma counselors. On stage, the principal announced this year's special recognition awards. When she called Emily's name, citing extraordinary courage in difficult circumstances, Sarah felt tears threatening. Her niece walked tall, accepting her certificate with the same quiet strength she'd shown in that flooded basement. Emily's eyes found Sarah and Max in the crowd, her smile brightening. "The DA's office called this morning," James said, his voice low. "Reynolds is taking a deal. 25 years, no parole, in exchange for naming names. The evidence you and Max found in that warehouse office, it went deeper than anyone imagined." Good. Sarah had spent the past weeks helping unravel the conspiracy. 12 school board officials arrested, 3 state politicians implicated. Millions in bribes traced back to offshore accounts. Each day brought new revelations, new arrests, new layers of corruption exposed to sunlight. The investigation had revealed Reynolds' true plan: create a crisis, then profit from the aftermath. The school bombings would have triggered insurance payouts, emergency funding, and a complete overhaul of security systems statewide. His company, through shell corporations and dirty politicians, would have controlled it all. Max's tail wagged as Emily approached after the ceremony, still clutching her certificate. Other children followed, drawn to the dog they now saw as a hero. Some had even started a fan club, complete with hand-drawn pictures of Max saving the day. Sarah watched as her partner gently accepted their attention, offering comfort with quiet dignity. "Aunt Sarah?" Emily's voice was small but steady. "Can we still have Sunday dinners, even with Dad's situation?" She glanced at James's ankle monitor, then quickly away. Sarah pulled her niece close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Every Sunday. And Max expects to resume fetch practice once your dad's ankle monitor allows backyard privileges. Maybe we can even set up that obstacle course you've been talking about." Emily managed a real smile, the kind that had been rare these past weeks. "He's the best dog ever. Did you know Tommy's mom is letting him get a Belgian Malinois? He wants to be a K9 officer now, just like you." "That he is." Sarah scratched Max's ears, remembering that first bark at the school bus. One dog's instincts had unraveled a conspiracy, saved lives, and reminded everyone that sometimes heroes came with 4 legs and unwavering loyalty. The investigation's success had brought offers. Captain Chen wanted Sarah to lead a new Special Investigations Unit. The FBI had mentioned a position in their K9 training program. She'd declined them all. Her place was in the K9 unit, working with the partner she trusted above all others. The past weeks had taught her something important. While the spotlight focused on the dramatic raids and rescues, the real work happened in quiet moments like this. A child finding courage to smile again, a family rebuilding trust, a community healing together. Max demonstrated his newest trick for the gathered children, a gentle handshake that never failed to delight them. Sarah watched their faces light up, remembering how close they'd come to losing everything. The bombs had been real, the threat had been real, but so was the strength of a community united against fear. James touched her shoulder, his good hand trembling slightly. "I'm sorry. For everything. I know those words aren't enough, but I know." Sarah met his eyes, seeing her brother beneath the mistakes. "We'll get through this, as a family, one Sunday dinner at a time." The season had changed since that fateful morning. Fall colors painted the schoolyard in shades of redemption. Children played without fear, parents chatted by the gates, and somewhere in the parking lot, yellow buses waited to carry precious cargo safely home. Sarah's phone buzzed, a message from Captain Chen about another case. There would always be more work, more challenges, more moments when justice needed 4 legs and a keen nose to prevail. But for now, watching Emily laugh as Max performed his repertoire of gentle tricks, Sarah knew they were exactly where they needed to be. The war was won. Justice was served, and in the laughter of children, a new chapter began, one where a brave girl, her aunt, and a remarkable dog reminded an entire city what it meant to stand against darkness and win. Max's tail wagged as if in agreement. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges, but today was for healing, for family, for the simple joy of being alive and together. In the end, that was the greatest victory of all.